Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Today on Feminine Roadmap, we are going to be talking about upgrading your inner armor, how to get your mind, body, and emotion to work for you instead of against you. So please stay tuned. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here, and I am excited about our conversation today. We are going to be talking about upgrading your inner armor. My guest today is Andrew Wittman. He's the author, speaker, and founder of Mental Toughness Training Center. We're going to be talking about disciplining your thoughts and disciplining your actions. So without further ado, I want to welcome Andrew to the show. Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming and being on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, this conversation is going to be literally life-changing for those people who hear this. And so before I jump right in, I do want to ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what is it that led you to come to this topic as your heart message?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my mom and dad were missionaries, and I was brought up in Australia in a little town in New South Wales called Wagga Wagga, halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. And I was the fat kid in high school, and I got bullied and beat up a lot, and I wasn't allowed to fight back. And so, I didn't want to live my life in fear and anxiety and always getting beat down. So instead of going to college when I first came back to the States, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, and I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps in the infantry, and I did combat in Desert Storm and the Republic of Panama. And that started me on my journey of what I call mental toughness, right? I'm getting control of my body, getting control of my emotions. I want my mind, running the show instead of sabotaging myself. And so after I left the Marine Corps, I did go to college. And then I went into law enforcement, and I spent a year and a half in South Carolina as a sheriff's deputy. And then when my wife became pregnant with our first, she said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, that's fantastic, sugar, but you're making 65% of our income, So what I did is I put applications into all the federal, the alphabet soup agencies, right? The FBI, the DEA, the Marshals, started going through all their processes. And the agency that called me first was the U.S. Capitol Police. And they do the same thing the Secret Service does. They just do it for the House and the Senate. So I hired on with them, and my great claim to fame as a federal agent is I was the agent in charge of Nancy Pelosi's detail. I was Joe Lieberman's lead advance, personally protected Hillary Clinton, Benjamin Netanyahu, King Abdullah of Jordan, and Sir Elton John. We don't want to leave him out. And then I went over to the State Department as a contractor and a consultant as the subject matter expert, teaching SEALs, Marines, Rangers, and Special Forces, right, high-threat diplomatic security. And we were teaching them really the skills of critical thinking and emotional intelligence, as well as the hard skills of shooting and driving and fighting. And I thought, this stuff, the civilian world needs this stuff, and I could teach it and not have to get shot at for a living. So that's when I created the Mental Toughness Training Center in 2013. And we've been gangbusters ever since.
That is amazing. It's so true. The skills, well, besides the shooting and all of that sort of thing, but really understanding how to manage yourself in a high stress, high risk situation. We definitely don't know how to handle that. So I'm really glad that you're doing this, but you kind of started focusing on disciplining your thought and disciplining your actions. So what are the kind of key elements that we need to really begin to recognize, we're made of mind, body, and emotions, and how do we find the balance in those things so that we're actually the most effective in what we want to accomplish?
Right. When I always like to go to the root cause of everything. And so what we found out through cognitive neuroscience and, I call biopsychology, which is how the body, mind, and emotions all work together. Right. We found out that thinking is what dictates everything else. Mm-hmm. So it all starts with the thought. And what we found out is that the average human thinks between 70 and 80,000 thoughts a day, right? And they speak 16,000 words a day on average. So if it comes out of your mouth, I know you've thought it at least 3 times. And then you start to take action on what you say. You begin to say it enough times you believe it, and then that changes your attitude, and then you take actions based on your belief and your attitude, right? So you just drill down and figure out, what is it that I'm thinking? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking? And how do I get those into control those. And with neuroscience, we found out in the last decade that the brain takes in 11 million bits of information every second. So through what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you touch, right, what you smell, it's 11 million bits of information. You're vacuuming up information at broadband speeds. But what they found out is only 126 bits go to your conscious mind for action. So you're literally discarding 99.9% of that information and taking action on only 0.1%, right, of that. And then, well, then how do you pick, how is it that we're picking that 1%, that 0.1%? How do we pick that 126? And what they found out is it's what you think, what your opinion is, what your attitude is, what your belief is, actually dictates the information that you look at. And then that becomes a medical self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's not just motivational speaker junk. Like medically, electrochemically, biophysically, the thoughts that you think actually dictate what your outcome is.
I'm so excited to hear someone else say this, because this is absolutely where when people say, why do you do what you do and how do we change our outcomes? I just was on a live radio program and I said, it starts between our ears.
Right.
Our mind and our thoughts are so, so, so powerful. Like if we're going into a situation, Andrew, and I'm sure that you do this, we mentally prepare ourselves, especially if you're a soldier or a police officer. You have to mentally decide ahead of time how you're going to step into a dangerous situation. You need to set your intention, right? Like, I'm going to stay in control. I'm going to look left. I'm going to look right. Whatever it is you need to keep my back to the door. And then you have to
practice that. Right. Now you have to set your intention, but you have to practice it so that you do it in real life, real time, without having to shove it into that 126 bits. Right. So this is the thing. We're all creatures of habit. And the problem is we act on those habits, not the 126. We act on the 10.9 million bits of information that are outside that consciousness. Right. So when you train your habits, that's what you're going to do, especially under pressure. So you need to retrain your habits. It's not that we quit habits. It's that we reprogram ourselves with better habits.
We're basically creating new neural pathways as we create new habits. But there's the challenge, isn't it, Andrew? Most people, our brains go to what it knows and what it's comfortable with.
Correct.
So how do you train people to shift and create new habits?
Well, the first thing I always ask in all my corporate training, like, how long does it take to create a habit?
Is it 66 days now?
Right. So people say 21 days, 66. And I'm like, well, let me ask it this way. If I was doing a 2-day training, Gina, where would you sit in the classroom on the second day?
Front. If I could get a seat.
You would be in the same seat. 99% of the time, people sit in the same seat they sat in day one. And you're going to try and park your car in the same spot as day one, and you'll be mad if someone's in that spot when you show up. Right? So here's how long it takes to create a habit. As soon as you're comfortable with it, it can be as little as one time.
What you're saying is as soon as you recognize you're in a rut, move.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's a good rut. Like I've been working, I train every day from 11 until 1300, 11 to 1. That's the time in Marine Corps we take a 2-hour lunch to go to the gym and work out. Right? I've been doing that since I was 18 years old. I'm 52 now. That is my default mode. I mean, unless I have something to do during that time, I already did it today. Right before we jumped on here, I was working out, right? I had to shift it a little bit. But during that time of day, that is my habit. It's a rut. I will never get out of that rut because it's a great habit and I get great results from it. Now, if I have a bad habit, one that I don't like, I need to replace it with something that gets me out of that rut.
Is it true that I've heard that when you have a habit, it's not like you get rid of it, but you replace it. So it's like if we are not mindful, it's easy to slip back into that habit. You have to really continue to choose and establish the new habit till it literally overrides.
Correct. Like it's not going to be in a vacuum, right? People try to quit stuff. You can't just quit something because there's not going to be a vacuum there. You have to replace it, right, or refill it, however we want to talk, right, with a better habit. And that's really what our entire program is about, is retraining the mind, right, to get better habits. I reprogram that 10.9 million bits, right? And we go through mindsets. There's different level of mindsets. We all grew up, right? And a lot of the stuff that we pick up, we don't even realize that we picked it up, but it's a defeated mindset or a survival mindset or just average, right? Like a penny saved is a
penny earned.
Yeah. Who told you that? And what can you do with a penny? Absolutely nothing. So people are scrounging for pennies. That's ridiculous, right? Another one is if it ain't broke,
don't fix it.
Right. So now you've just hampered any kind of innovation. Another one is when I hear, this one drives me insane when people talk about best practices. because best practices means this is it. You know what was the best practices? The telegraph. Morse code. That was best practices. If we had stopped there and Alexander Graham Bell said, well, that's best practices, we never had the telephone. And then, remember there's the old ringer ding a ding, right? And then it was the dial up, and then we went to push button, and then we had the big brick. Can you hear me now? And now we have smartphones, right? None of these things, innovators never say this is best practices. Only average-minded, defeated people that are just surviving, have the mindset of I'm doing the best practices, or I'm doing the best that I can. That one drives me insane, because that's I'm doing the best that I can. Are you though? Really? Seriously? That's the absolute best that you can. You couldn't do any better. Huh? Yeah, really? Seriously. Right. So these are all the average-minded things that we've picked up, or defeated things, or just survival mode that we've picked up over the years, and they're operating as habits, and we don't even realize these self-limiting beliefs and opinions that we have about ourselves and life.
It's interesting because so many people live under these ideas or these opinions or these we'll put quote truths around it, yes. And they don't even know it. They've thought it so many times and they've acted on it so many times that they're not even aware.
Correct.
The outcomes in their life are actually under their control.
100% under your control. Because and I always ask this, whose life is it?
Yes.
Like, don't blame the economy, the government, your ex, whatever, right? Whose life is it? You made the decision, and that's why you're here. You made a series of people that say, well, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, at some point, you made a bad decision. That's why it happened. The reason is you made choices, and now you have this outcome.
So now you talk about being the CEO of you, being mind, body, and emotions, and you talk about that being a board of directors. Would you flesh that out a little bit for me?
Yeah, so what we do is, in all of our corporate training and my coaching clients, I hire every human being to be the CEO of themselves incorporated, CEO of you incorporated. And your job as the CEO of you is to get your board of directors to act in concert for your betterment instead of your detriment, right? And your board of directors as your body, mind, and emotions. So then I ask this question. When you have a boardroom meeting with yourself, which director usually wins the vote, body, mind, or emotions? And though I ask it this way, have you ever made an emotional decision, and then how'd that work out?
Well,
not too good. Right.
Not so great usually.
Right. So who should be running the boardroom is the mind. Now, that sounds simple enough, but there's 3 votes in the boardroom. So the body is the swing vote, because the mind and emotions will never vote together. They are diametrically opposed. They have opposite missions, like the State Department and the Department of Defense, right? One has diplomacy and the other has we blow up stuff. So they'll never vote together. So the swing vote is the body. And this is the key to resilience, to upgrading your inner armor, to taking control of your life. The first level is dominating your body. If you don't dominate your body will side with what we feel like doing. And then now the emotions are running the boardroom. So I have to dominate my body and do stuff I don't feel like doing. Every time I do, I'm allowing my mind to take over the boardroom.
That is a hard habit to break, isn't it? The power of,
it could be, military. But yeah, you just get comfortable with dominating your body. So listen, when I grew up, we all have heard this, right? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Right?
Weak,
heard that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that people my relatives used to use that as an excuse for getting a second piece of cheesecake. Well, the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. Give me another piece. Right? That's not what that's talking about, right? What that's talking about is the flesh. Your body is the weakest of the board of directors, and it's the easiest one to dominate. If it wasn't, we would never get potty trained when we're 2 to 3 years old. It literally takes almost no, massive cognitive processing to dominate your body. The problem is most adults, that was the last time they dominated their body, right? That's the point of being an adult, right, Gina? I can get up when I want to. I can go to bed when I want to. I can eat my dessert first if I want to, right? So if you let your body run rampant, then your mind will never, ever get the boardroom under control. It's not going to happen.
Yes. If we take every thought captive, every
Correct.
Single thought captive, imagine the power that we would have if we could capture those. I always use the analogy of our thoughts are like little birds and our brain is like a cage, right? Our mind is like a cage. If those birds get out of that cage and we don't keep them in the cage, there's poop and feathers everywhere and complete chaos. Controlling.
Right. However, you have to visualize it, right? So, and this is the kind of stuff that I practice, and this is where this comes in. We know this from scientific research, that your willpower, right, is like a muscle, and the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. So your willpower is, that's the CEO of you. That's your spirit, your human spirit, if you will, taking control of the boardroom. And so I exercise that willpower every single day. Like I do intermittent fasting. I only eat my meals once a day, and I eat it between the hours of 4 in the afternoon and 8 o'clock at night. I don't eat before 4. I won't eat after 8, and I eat one meal. And there's a lot of scientific, like medical research of why that's good for the body. But really, here's the fact is I'm just dominating my body. I was the fat kid in high school before I went to boot camp, and I will never be the fat kid again. And I will take complete control of my body. And once you take up real estate, I ain't giving it up, right? So once I've dominated my body, I continue to practice that every single day.
What are some of the best practices? You like that? What do you, as far as when you help people really recognize the power that they do have over their own mind and body, what are some of the things that you begin to get them to think differently or do differently?
Right. So the first thing, and this is the baseline, is who are you?
Mm-hmm.
I need to know your identity, right? If your identity is I'm a mom or I'm a cop, this is funny because it's not funny. It's really sad, but like 80% of cops have heart attacks and die within 3 years of retirement.
Really?
Yeah. Why is that? Because of all the Waffle House food we've been eating? Well, that didn't help, right? But no, it's because our identity, most of us, our identity is the badge and the gun. And when that's gone, then I don't know who I am. And it's a tough transition, and retirement's a quick step to death. That's the same with a football coach, a Navy SEAL, Marine, right? That's your identity. When I hear someone say I'm a mom, I'm like, uh-oh. Because what happens with an empty nest, then you got this big transition that's really, really tough. So who are you because that's a role you play, being a mom. Being a cop, that's a role we play. Whatever your job is, it's a role you play, right? Who are you internally? When all those things go away, who are you? And put that in a statement. Like my identity statement is I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word. That's who Andrew is. Whether I'm being a father, a husband, the CEO of my company, whether I'm coaching Little League, whether I'm speaking at a keynote, I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word. That will never run out, ever. That's just who I am. So that's why first thing is I got to ask you, who are you? And if you don't know who you are, you'll never be rooted and grounded. You'll be tossed to and fro in life. Every time a storm comes, you have no grounding. You have no foundation. You have no anchor. Who are you?
And if we don't know who we are, then there's nothing to keep us in one lane, right?
Correct. Yes, because once I know who I am, then life is so simple, Gina, because if I'm a man of excellence, that means I can't half-step anything. Mm-hmm. If I'm a man of excellence, I can't just give a half an effort, right? Even if it's making dinner or cleaning up the dishes, right? They're spotless when I'm done cleaning them because I'm a man of excellence, right? So my choices are already made. And then if I always keep my word, then I always keep my word. I'll tell somebody I'm going to be somewhere at a certain time, and then I don't show up. Now, because I do that, I don't give my word that often because otherwise I'd be overcommitted and I couldn't keep it. Now, life is very easy because I just say no to people that it's not a priority. Hey, I'd love to do that. I just can't squeeze that in.
That's a good practice, actually, learning to set boundaries. In another frame, that would be setting boundaries and learning to say no more often so you can say yes to the greater opportunities.
Right, but instead of trying to use that as a tactical tool, I make it who I am at the core of my being. And then it becomes like a byproduct of who I am. It's not me trying to do a tip I heard somewhere.
Right.
It's a byproduct of who I am. And this is the key to everything. You got to start at ground. That's why I call it Ground Zero Leadership. That's what my book is called, Ground Zero Leadership, CEO of You. It starts at ground zero with you. If you can't get yourself, who you are and get your board of directors under control, you'll never have victory in life. You'll never have success. It's always, you're pasting things from the outside instead of fixing the inside.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the harder job, is it not?
It's the hardest job, but once you get it done, life is fun. And then what happens is what I call pushing out your airspace. And then people want to be inside your bubble. Because listen, think about this. In any crisis, the person we look to is not who's in charge, quote, quote, or the highest ranking or the highest paid. We always look to the person who's in control of themselves.
True.
And once you can control yourself, then you can push out your airspace. You will get promoted. You will get opportunities like nobody's business when you can control yourself, because that's a skill. We call them soft skills in corporate. That's really a hard skill. And once you have it, you can go anywhere and write your own ticket.
I love that you were talking about roles that we play, because a large portion of my audience are women in midlife who have played a lot of roles. They've been mothers, maybe they've built businesses, maybe they've been the executive secretary. And we do hit this point, you and I are the same age, and there's this kind of point where the culture's telling us who we are, whether or not we're viable and valuable, and you start to really begin to kind of question. Some people get lost in that process and they begin to question, who am I? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And you begin to be forced into transitions and forced into changes. Do you deal a lot with people who are kind of at a crossroads that came up on them, as opposed to them intentionally getting to a place and are looking for that?
Yeah, constantly. That's probably, just our in-house research shows that's 95% of people. Only 5% of people take control of their stuff.
Wow.
Right. So it's 95% of folks don't. Right. And yes. So stuff does happen, and then you're like caught unawares, or you're blindsided, and now what? You can take control at any point in time, though. It doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter, what your financial situation is. What matters is what's your mindset. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What is it that you aspire to be, for yourself internally? And this is the huge key for all that, with that societal pressure and peer pressure. The number one need of all humans is acceptance, right? The number one fear is rejection. It isn't death. It isn't failure. It's rejection. If you don't internally accept yourself, you will constantly be looking for that acceptance from an external source. So now you've abdicated your power of who you are, CEO of you, to the rest of the planet. I don't let anybody, listen, I love you, but I don't care if you like me or not. Andrew loves Andrew. Right.
Without the ego. We're just talking about
not ego.
Would you call it like myself. Loyalty, or would you call it just commitment?
I accept myself. Mm-hmm. Right. And that doesn't mean I stop. All the flaws. Listen, when we look in the mirror, what do we see, Gina?
Well, we have a tendency to tear ourselves down instead of the things that are good.
Right. So and I work on this every day. I told you that earlier. I always see the fat kid in the mirror, right? I'll never be that again. So I have to work on those things. If I have to work on my self-esteem, right, every day, I know everybody else does. There's nothing that's uncommon to all mankind, right? So I know every day I got to get in the mirror and reaffirm the acceptance of myself. That doesn't mean I don't try to get better. That doesn't mean I don't do training and development. That doesn't mean I don't learn and grow. That means I can sleep at night because I literally gave my best effort. And I do that every day. I give my best effort. I'm a man of excellence. So if I'm not giving my best effort, I can't sleep at night. That gives me permission to fail. And I'm not a perfectionist, right? I know I'm not perfect and I never will be, but that doesn't stop me from striving for excellence. And this all goes to your self-acceptance. And once you live like that, it doesn't matter what people think of me. It doesn't matter, because I can't control what they think. I can't control what they say, right? I can't control what they're going to write about me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Can't control any of those things. I can't control the weather. So the only thing I can control is my response and me. And that's what I focus on. I don't waste one bit of energy on what anybody else is thinking.
I think that's probably, for women, one of the greater obstacles is not caring what other people think.
Right.
Because it's true. It really doesn't matter what they think. But I love that you said we talk about giving our power away versus holding on to our power. And if somebody has never, ever, ever set those boundaries, and somebody has never, ever set intention, and they've literally been this ship that's kind of floating through life, running from emergency to emergency, or finding their value in being that person who, does all of those things. What do you do to help them just literally unlock that habit that they're in of seeing themselves as everybody needs me, I have to do everything, maybe the martyr syndrome or the victim syndrome? How do you help them become aware that they're there if they really can't see it?
Right. So the first thing I do, and this is everybody that asks me, I send them to my website. You can buy the book, Ground Zero Leadership CEO of You. Get the CEO of You seminar. It's on my website. It's like $129, right? People, if they won't do that, then I know that they're really not interested in fixing the problem. It's not about me getting the money. It's about you. If you're not invested in it, you're not going to do the work, because mental work is a bazillion times harder than physical work. And right. So, and go through that and answer the questions. We walk you down the psychological path of, we ask stuff like, write your obituary. Like, what do you want the end of your life? What do you want people to say at the end of your life? Who are your three most, influential people in your life, your three heroes, and why? What are you most proud of in your account? Right. So we walk you down this path, write out those answers and actually do the introspection, because that's what we're doing. We're facilitating the introspection and figuring out what is, and take an honest assessment, right? You got to be honest with yourself. Most people will lie to themselves, right? So that's the first step. And then after you go through that, then it's like, people want to get in touch to do coaching, right? So, and coaching, listen, my daughter plays lacrosse, and one of the dominant lacrosse teams here in South Carolina, this is all they do. They do a box drill of fundamentals for half the practice, and the other half of the practice, they do scrimmage. And while they're doing the scrimmage, he stops them, and every time blows the whistle and makes the coaching correction. He stops them and makes it in a live play situation. That's most of his practice. They dominate for the last decade. This is the same thing of why you need a coach, right? In your middle of life and you're making a bad decision, you could talk to your coach and make the teaching moment, make the course correction right then, and then you'll see success. You're not going to get, listen, here's just the fact. You're not going to get success reading my book or any other book. You'll get information, but without somebody helping you, coach you through it, you'll never be a champion in life. I always laugh because like the Patriots, right? Tom Brady gets coaching constantly. He doesn't get coaching one time and then next year we'll see you. Same thing with Peyton Manning or anybody who's a champion. They get constant coaching, someone who doesn't have the blind spot and says, here's the course correction.
Coaching is powerful because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. There's so many things that
Correct.
we do and are and be and say that we don't even know. It's so subconscious. It's autopilot. That's where the coaching comes in to be such a pivotal part. When I coach a client, I actually take notes. And a lot of the time, especially in the initial conversation, I ask them questions and I record exactly what they say. Yep. And then at the end, I give them an email of what they've said. And every single time,
they're shocked.
They are shocked.
Yeah.
They're like, did I say that? I'm like, you absolutely did say that. And It's almost like a window into their soul. They're realizing they're saying and believing things and they don't even know it.
Right. It's totally on that 10.9, 10, whatever. It's the outside the 126, right? At 99%, right? They're on autopilot. And so we teach all of those things. We walk you down the path, but there's no, this is like, cause I used to do physical training, right? Personal training for a long time. And a client will come to me and they're like, I want to lose 100 pounds, by next week. Like that's not going to happen. It didn't take you overnight to get there. It's not going to take you overnight to unwind it. If you're in the middle of a midlife crisis, right? Or you're in the middle of anxiety and depression, it ain't going to get unwound overnight. There's not a quick drug that you could take that'll fix it. It'll only mask the symptoms, right? You have to fix you and that's what I call ground zero again. The root cause is how you think your thoughts. What do you believe about yourself? What you believe about life? You could change everyone. Opinion's a softer word. You could change your opinions about those things simply by what are you feeding on? If you're feeding on all the doom and gloom and all the fighting and riled up nonsense that's out there, and just turn off all that junk and start feeding on good things like this podcast. Feed on this.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're a parent. I'm a parent. I've had thousands of conversations with my children about guarding their hearts and minds and really being aware of what do you listen to?
Yes.
Music. What books do you read? What movies do you watch? We think all of these things are, quote, entertainment, but we are allowing through our eye gates and our ear gates, we're allowing information that can really impact our emotions. I used to have a talk. We homeschooled, and Chia had a bunch of resources, and somebody gave me, this is old. This is how you're going to know it's old. They were on cassette tapes. And I had this.
It wasn't 8-track. If it was 8-track, then I know it was really old.
Yeah, well, 8-track was my first. And then we moved to cassettes. And so I had a cassette on the power of music. And I really wish I knew where that was. I would get it, moved to a CD, because the power of our minds, we really don't understand how easily influenced we are by exterior things. You think about music and how it can put you in a mood, right?
Right, absolutely.
Smells.
You
Sounds.
use all those things, and you use them to your advantage instead of your disadvantage, right? That's part of what CEO of you. Am I using this to help me or using it to hurt me? All of those things. And it's not just emotionally. It's like the lyrics, they begin to program certain things, and you find yourself singing lyrics of a song over. And I always say this, if you begin to understand, a country music song, your life is screwed up. Like you need like that. When you begin to understand a song, you're in trouble.
When you relate to the beer in the truck.
Yeah, it's time to go, man. You're like, you got to fix this stuff, right? Because if you're like, they repoed my single wide, it's a problem.
But those are the things we don't guard against because we see it as entertainment. We're winding down by doing these things.
That's not how you should be winding. I always point my brain in a direction that helps me and not hurt. See, here's the key, right? The 11 million bits to the 126. Here's the question everybody should be asking themselves. Am I pointing those 126 in a direction that helps me or hurts me every single second of every day? I'm asking myself, is this thought process, what I'm thinking right now, is this helping me or hurting me? Right. And if it's hurting you, then you got to change it to a thought process that helps you. In my books, I have what I call the good list and the evil list, right? The good list is all things like beauty, bounty, better, the best, happy, welfare, cheerful, glad, lighthearted, willing, right? Prosperity, right? And the evil list is adversity, affliction, calamity, great grief, harm, heaviness, anxiety, right? Which one of these thoughts, right? That's that captivity list. A very simple list. You could look at it and identify, well, was this one helping me? If it's on this list, the evil list, it's hurting me. I need to replace it with one of these thoughts on the good list.
Now, when people are beginning to replace their thoughts and they're beginning to be more intentional about what they're listening to, what they're reading, even who they're spending their time with.
Correct.
Because there are people you can love, but they may not necessarily be the person who should have the loudest voice in your ears.
Right, and we talk about that. We call it cocooning. First off, what is all the media and the stuff you're feeding on, and then who are you hanging out with? I mean, you'll never outperform your inner circle, right? And they did a study in the New England Journal of Medicine a couple of years ago that came out that said if you have a close friend who's obese, if you have a friend who's obese, you have like a 56% chance of also being obese. If you have a close friend who's obese, you have a 171% chance of being obese, regardless of the geography, if they're a close friend. So because that mindset is contagious. The same thing with, whatever your economic status is, whether you think stuff at work or not at work, right? This is when my boys are at the Citadel and then they live in the barracks. And of course, it's a military school. So every time they come down with a change, right, the herd, the general wisdom, the sheep all start complaining and they all get wound up emotionally. All right. And I'm like, guys, do the opposite of that, man. Do the opposite of that. Whatever everybody's, complaining, just be like flip it. Is this helping me or hurting me? How can this help me? Right. This is another great thing. When bad news happens, ask yourself, how can I use this to my greatest possible advantage? When you ask yourself that question, your brain unlocks all the reasons why whatever just happened is good and not bad. Because whether something's good or bad is strictly your perspective, your truth, as you said. It's how you view it. If you view it as bad, then it's going to be bad. If you say, how can I use this for my best possible advantage? That will present itself, and now it's good.
I'm always amazed, and I talk about it all the time, is how powerful because thoughts are things, right? What we think is the truth, even if it's not true.
Right. It's our reality. Absolutely.
And so if I think nobody listens to me, nobody appreciates me, then I go down this road and I literally can't see the appreciation.
Correct. And we know the neurons that wire together fire together. This is why we don't allow complaining in my house. You can state a problem one time, and then after that, you got to give me solutions to it. Because this is what happens. Somebody makes a complaint and they get the feeling of acceptance and approval from somebody. They give sympathy. Oh, yeah, that's awful. Yeah. So now they felt that dopamine hit, and then they're going to go try and say it again. So they hit it again. Then they say it a third time, and now it becomes a habit. You just say that, like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. Taxes are awful. Any of these things that you got to hit a dopamine hit off of the first time, you can begin to say now you've created a super highway in your brain to complain about this thing, and you don't even realize it. You are driving 85 miles an hour down a 6-lane highway and not being able to see any solutions or anything good because you're just traveling so fast on the highway to complaining.
That's really powerful. Saying things like, I'm overwhelmed, I feel stressed, I can't do this. All of those things are basically like driving an out of control big rig toward a wall.
Yes. You'll never hear me say this stuff. People are like, I'm getting too old for this. Man, I'm just getting started.
Yeah. That is feminine roadmap in a nutshell. Right? That's really what it's about, is we're just getting started. The power of what we've gained in terms of knowledge and experience, really the outcome of my life is from what I put into it. It has nothing to do with how old I am. It has everything to do
Correct.
with how I choose to engage with the day that's given to me and the opportunities that come my way.
100%.
So now, how do you find your greatest joy in doing what you do? What is the greatest thing about what you do?
Well, the greatest thing is watching my kids who are 21 and 19 and 15 when they don't know I'm watching them, who have adopted all these principles from the time that they were young, and seeing them have success, how they define it, fulfillment and happiness all the time. Like, that's my greatest joy. The second greatest joy is when I have a coaching client, that I've walked through and been with them for either, 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, whatever. I usually kick them out of the nest after that, right? Because I'm not your therapist. Going on out of here, go to work, right? To see them do good. Right. And that's the greatest joy, when you see people make course corrections in life and then they just enjoy it. They have success, however they define it, and they're fulfilled and they enjoy happiness. They're just enjoying life. It's just fun. There's not this doom and gloom. And really, it doesn't matter what anything's happening in the market, whatever. We know that we're who we are and we're fulfilled in that. That's my greatest and second greatest joy. Seeing it in my kids and then seeing it in my coaching clients.
Yes. And that's something to be mindful of, is everybody has some level of influence. Wouldn't you agree, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, if they're either it's what to do or what not to do. But yeah, everybody's influencing if you cross their path. There is a level of influence. There is a
level of influence. I've recently become really, really aware of the power of influence, walking through something with someone and realizing that what I'm saying is being taken with a lot of weight. And it really makes you stop and think, okay, are the words that I'm saying, like, if I have to speak to myself well and correctly so that I can speak to other people well and correctly. It's not like I can live two different lives and speak to and about myself and my situation one way and then try to be this influence and this impact in another. And a lot of people say, I'm not influencing anybody. And I would disagree and say, someone somewhere is watching the way you live and it's making a difference. So there's almost like you said, you're a man of excellence. While we shouldn't live our lives for other people in that sense of because of, we should be aware that it matters how we live because it does impact other people.
Right. And I'm not looking to cause anybody to stumble.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I live my life in a way that, and I always think this, like, because somebody, and I don't know about you, I'll just talk about me. At some point when I was like in 7th or 8th grade, somebody called me fat and I internalized that. It was just an offhand comment. And the kid probably didn't even know what he was saying. He was just, you're fat, Wittman, blah, blah, blah. And I internalized that offhand comment. I know exactly who said it and when they said it, and then you go back, 3 decades later, you're like, dude, you remember that time you called me? Like, what? No, I don't remember that. Like, so it's just an offhand comment they don't even remember and how it impacted another person. So I'm very aware of what the words are coming out of my mouth.
I've told my kids, when you think about bullies, people that are mean, I said, the reason that they can move on and not remember is because they didn't feel the pain of what they said and did. And I think part of our process, talking about being CEO of our own mind, body, and emotions, a lot of the times, like you said, you have a memory that's so locked and loaded. I mean, and it's loaded. It has emotion. When we put emotional charge on a memory, that sucker has so deep.
Yeah, it sticks.
It sticks like super glue.
Yeah.
We have the ability to release that and really recognize, you know what? The bully can move on because it didn't hurt them. There was no impact to those words.
And I'm not going to give the bully that power to continue to hurt me. So I'm just like, let it go. Like, I can't control what they say anyway. And then again, back to accepting myself. Once I accept myself, then that doesn't cause me pain anymore. Right. But at some point I did internalize it. Right. Because then it put me on that track to go into the Marine Corps and being in anxiety and fear. And I think all of us have a coaching client held on to something. They just hold on to the one offhand comment that somebody made that was not even their boss, but I was like a prospective client. And they kept that thing and harbored it for like 2 years. I'm like, are you still talking about that? It's been 2 years. Like, let it go already, and that's up to you. You can control whether you internalize that or you dump it. However, on my side of it, I don't want to be the cause of someone else stumbling. That's why I don't get into controversies on the internet. People are always telling me you got to take a controversial position. You got to get, I'm not going to. Whatever you believe, I'm good with. That's up to you. I'll teach you how beliefs are made, But you can believe whatever you want. It's your life. It doesn't mine. I'm not going to get mad at you because you believe something different than me. I mean, I'll give you the process of how a belief is made and then hope you vet it. I mean, I vet all my beliefs, but I'm not going to get in a fight over stuff. I mean, I just don't need that drama. Do you?
Oh, gosh. I'm a very opinionated, strong-minded woman who does not get involved on social media ever. And I've got a very diverse friend group because of the places I've worked and the things that I've done. But, that's even taking control of your mind and emotions there, because social media is such a big part of all of our lives, trying to stay connected with our family and our friends. And we're thinking about aging. Let's jump on that train a little bit. When you're talking about taking the control of your mind, body, and emotions and the attitudes around us about aging, you're a man, so that gives us a different perspective. We're talking about viability and relevance and all of these things. We get to choose. You said, I'm only going to get better, right? I'm going to choose. I think that the countercultural mindset of age is just a number. It really is. We get to choose whether or not we make agreement with that.
Correct. And that's a huge thing. What are you agreeing with? I just had my life insurance physical yesterday, right? Lady's like, wow, you're a super young looking 52-year-old. I'm like, right, I work at it, man. This takes work, right? But I choose what I'm put in my mouth. I choose what my diet is. I choose what my physical regimen is. I choose like clean living, right? I'm not putting any poisons in my body, including sugar, alcohol, and tobacco. Right, all these things, right? Those are your choices. But I'm going to keep up with all the science that we know that, I'm and live the best life that I can live. Now, I'm not, there's days when I treat myself. I don't like to say a cheat day because that means I'm feeling guilty about it. There are days when I treat myself and like I take my wife to dinner and we'll have cakes, pies, and ice cream on our anniversary or whatever. That's not my default mode though, right? So This is like same thing with age. I mean, whatever. I mean, there's certain things that we could do to keep our brain cognitively processing better, which also happens to coincide with doing like 30 minutes of cardio. I'm just saying. I just throw that in there. It actually helps your cognitive process. So if you're feeling a little like, dusty up top, maybe you start walking, or you go out for a jog or ride a bike or something, right? So all this science, I study all this stuff because I want to squeeze every ounce out of my life that I possibly can. And I'm not even planning on dying. Right. And I have a 300-year plan. So this is a big thing about aging. I have a 300-year plan. It's written out. It'll take 300 years to accomplish. People are like, well, you're not going to be here, right? I'm like, well, I'm planning on being here, and I'll tell your great-great-grandkids about
it. So you want to write something down so I can tell them?
Right. I'll pass a message on to you. Right. But so because I have a 300-year plan, like I could have a bad day. It doesn't even matter. A bad week, a bad year. I could have a bad decade, and I'm looking at my 300-year plan. Who cares if you have a bad decade? It's one little blip on the radar screen. I'm not getting stressed out over it. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not having anxiety. And listen, stress causes 80 to 90% of all illnesses.
Yes.
You want to beat age, beat stress.
It's all about perspective is what you're saying, Andrew. Your perspective on life and how a situation, the weight, we give the weight to the things, the words, and the situations, right? And it's our perspective, really. As soon as we recognize it's not them, it's really me. It's how I choose to engage. My daughter and I have been doing something together, and there is a difficult personality that we were dealing with. And we basically are like, okay, I said, you know what? Yes, prickly pear. No, don't enjoy, right?
Not my favorite is what I say. They're not my favorite,
But how are we going to go into that situation? How are we going to set our intention? What are we going to show up and do and be? And it's really interesting, to be completely honest, Andrew. She said to me the other day, she said, I literally didn't even realize she was there. Like, it wasn't, we're going to ignore her. What we did was we said, we're going to go and we're going to enjoy the person that's in front of us, and we're going to get involved in what we're doing. And we're like building these relationships. And then we realized it was literally like she wasn't there, but we weren't intending to ignore her. We were intending.
You just took away the power. You just took away the power of what we call a difficult personality. I always laugh when people say they're a difficult personality. I'm like, there you go, look in the mirror. Because listen, if anybody on the planet has somebody that's their friend that likes them, I know it's possible to like them.
right?
Right. So now it's my problem. Like, this is what I call the elite warrior mindset. I'm the problem and I'm the solution. If I have a problem with them, it's me. It ain't them, it's me. And I have to figure out how to solve that problem. Right. And when you have that mindset, I'm the problem and I'm the solution. Listen, I stole that from Bridesmaids, by the way. I want to get credit. It's a great mental toughness movie, Bridesmaids. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
I haven't. I'll have to go watch it.
It's a little raunchy, but, it's a little raunchy. But at the end, I mean, that's what they say. You're your problem and you're your solution. And that's 100% right. If I have a problem on the planet, it's me. But I'm also the solution, whether it's, with my kids, my spouse, at work, or the government, tax, whatever it is. I'm the problem and I'm the solution.
Well, what I love about that mindset, I'm the problem, I'm the solution, means that I can always find a way, a workaround, a solution, an answer, because I'm not waiting.
Correct. Every time. I'm in control. I have the power. I control me. It's my life. It's my body. It's my checkbook. They're my relationships, right? Mine. So if there's a problem, it's me. But I'm also the solution. When you have that mindset, you take complete control of your life.
And there is the thing that a lot of people don't want to do, because then they're responsible for the actions they take and they can't blame other people.
And listen, I love you. I don't judge you, but I got a thing. I'm not hanging out with you. And I only help people that want to be helped. So there's a saying that says, to support the weak, but comfort the feeble-minded. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. Support the weak, comfort if you're weak and you want to get strong, I will support you. I will help get you strong. I will pour resources into you. But if you're feeble-minded and you just want, I'll just comfort you. I'll give you the back pat. Oh, it's okay, baby. Here's a bottle of water. Put your feet up, and I'm gone. I'm not spending any time or resources on somebody who's feeble-minded. So that person that you said they just don't want to take control. Hey, man, love you. Bless your heart. I'm out.
I have to say, Andrew, that if people could adopt that mindset, I wonder if that would not impact the number of feeble-minded, because at some point they're all going to be sitting there by themselves without anybody feeling sorry for them.
Right. And then that's the end of it. Like, if you want to go, right, you'll find somebody else to, I could say, suck the life out of, while you ain't changing. Hey, it ain't me. I love you. Don't get me wrong. I love you. But I got a thing. Oh, look at the time. Holy smoke. And listen, I do it to relatives too. I don't care how close you are. I mean, if you, bye, I love you, but I got to go. I always tell this on the podium, right, that my mom and dad, they would give me the evil list, everything that was wrong is the organ recital. My pancreas is gone. My kidneys are gone. My liver, is that everything that's wrong in their life, everything I'm like, it's such a downer to talk to you guys. I'll tell you what. If you can't tell me something good that's happened in your life, I'm not going to talk to you guys for 30 days. And I did it. On
How'd
day
that
31,
go?
Yeah, well, I didn't answer their calls. They didn't hear. I was on day 31. I call them up. I'm like, hey, guys, how's it going? They're like, it's senior day at Kroger, and we got such a deal on bananas. It's fantastic. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. You got to tell me something good, right? So, and that was our habit. They would only tell me good stuff that's going on in their life. Then my brothers and sisters called, hey, do you know what's going on with mom and dad? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I just talked to them. They're having a fantastic time. And then they would like tell me all this stuff. See, they're still dumping on them. But when they're talking to me, I get all the good stuff that's happening in their life. So my calls are, they're happy. I'm happy. We're all happy, right? But I'm not going to hang out with you. I don't care if you're my parents. If you're on the evil list and you're bringing me down, I love you, but I got a thing.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation recently about that, about the idea that just because someone's a relative does not give them an automatic pass and access to me, my mind, my time.
Correct.
And that's a very difficult thing for some people to set boundaries on. But I will tell you right now that we do lead, we do influence. And like you did, you influenced and you led that situation. It may have taken some time and they may or may not have chosen to cooperate.
Yeah, that was on them. I couldn't have controlled that. But I'll tell you what, I wasn't going to feel lousy every time I get on the phone with you. I'm just not going to do it. I always use the CDC numbers. I call it the death clock, right? How many days is in the average lifespan for men and women in this country? Like, I'm under like 8,000 days. I'm not spending one of my days. I'm not spending an hour listening to you complain about, the PTA, the next door neighbor, what's going on at church, the little league coach, the teacher, the principal, the coworker. I'm just not wasting. I don't have enough time for that, man.
So now you must sometimes have a difficult day or a difficult time. So how do you, when you feel that evil list popping up in your own life. What is the tactic that you use to get back in the driver's seat?
Right now, and then this is kind of cheating, but I've created like my own little phalanx, right? The phalanx is shoulder to shoulder, like the 300 of my wife and my kids, right? So your kids will tell you, hey, Dad, you ain't doing what you say. Or my wife would say this. I'd say something that came out of my mouth that was not, helpful. And she would say, do you want me to agree with that?
The accountability system.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't really. So yes, I have and then I have also good friends that would keep us accountable. That would say, hey, listen, man, you want me to, and we don't have to be mean about it. Be like, do you want me to agree with that? Is that helping you or hurting you? Just spitting back my same coaching questions, right? And my kids will do it in a heartbeat, man, because they'll be like, they can't wait to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They love that. So
yes, I know.
Yeah, so I cannot stay there very long. I mean, there are days when and I'll say stuff like, now when I say I'm tired, it's very rare that I say it. That means that I'm not like wanting to go to sleep. That just means I've had it up to here with what's going on, right? So I'll say I'm tired, and then they'll say, yeah, I get it, Dad. Do you want me to agree with that, though? Like, so what's the alternative? You taking your pack off? Are we quitting? What's going on? No. Yeah, all right. I'm back in the saddle, right? So that's, the accountability.
I have a couple of people in my life right now, and one of the things that I have found has been very helpful when somebody's going through a difficult circumstance is I don't know what their best choice is. I might have an opinion about what they should do, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I tried to point them to truth, right? Not their truth, but a solid truth about situations, people, things. And we focus on truth. What is our identity? Not what somebody else says, but like, it's interesting because you're putting it in different words, but it's pretty much the same.
They're all the same. It's the same principles. I call them universal faith-based principles. And faith being belief, right? We all have belief, but they're universal and they work. It's like the law of gravity, whatever you want to call it. You drop a hammer off a building, it's going to fall to the ground. I mean, you call it whatever you want, but that's what it's doing.
But I think that's why it's so important that we do have some foundational truths, because when we come back to whether someone has like a faith like I do, or they don't. But when you use wisdom, truth, solid things, right, and you can anchor people to that, when you don't, I can't solve your problem, but I can definitely walk you through it. This whole idea of helping them become CEOs of their mind, body, and emotions, these questions are incredibly powerful. Who are you? What do you want to make an agreement with?
Right. I mean, and you have to think about that. That's why I say it's hard work. It's harder than physical work. Mental and emotional work's harder.
And I'm glad you say that, because it's the solution, but it's the solution that's going to require us to put our big girl panties on, strap on our boots and do the work.
Yeah, you got to invest in yourself. And I mean, invest time. You have to invest energy. You have to invest, money. You're going to have to invest, right? So this always cracks me up. People are like, I want to, what your priority is. I can open up your checkbook or look at your bank account statement. I'll tell you what your priority is where you're spending all your money. If it's on fast food and junk and, then I'll know it. If it's on entertainment, we'll know it. If you want to know what your priorities are, but not what you want them to be, but what they actually are, is go look at where you're spending your money.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we kind of round out our time together, Andrew, I would love to have you share with my tribe. We've talked about a lot of things, and we've kind of skipped the rock, if you will, because you and I both know that we're basically pointing to a principle, but there's so much underneath that can be fleshed out that changes people's lives. And it really changes the trajectory, not only of their own lives, but anyone who comes in contact with them. This is where real change is made, right?
Absolutely.
You're
100%.
talking about. So if you had to kind of distill down for people, if there were just 3 things you wanted them to walk away with, what would those 3 things be?
Well, the first thing is that the human brain is the original search engine, and it has to answer a question. It doesn't have to come out of your mouth, but it has to. Like if I said, don't recall whatever I'm about to say next, what's 2 + 2? Stop it. What city are you in? Quit recalling that information, right? So, ask and you shall receive. Right. If you ask a bad question, what kind of answer are you going to get? Bad answer. Ask a good question, you'll get a good answer. Ask a better question, you'll get a better answer. So this is probably like the best question that you could ask yourself. Whenever you're in a spot where you hear that inner voice of resistance saying, this won't work, that's crazy talk, Andrew, that's nuts, Gina, that ain't going to work. When you hear that resistance, just stop for 2 minutes and say, no, I get it. It's impossible. But if it were possible, how would I do it? How would I do it? I call it my 2-minute rule. Suspend your disbelief for 2 minutes. Like whenever you hear that inner voice of resistance, just be like, okay, listen, I'm not arguing that this isn't crazy, but if we could accomplish this, how would we do it? And it frees up your brain to go search for solutions. That's the first thing. The second thing is to understand like the body, mind, and emotions and who's running the boardroom. Make sure that your mind is running the boardroom by dominating your body. There's no shortcut around it. If I coach somebody that doesn't want to get their nutrition under control, their fitness under control, their sleep under control, their water take under control, listen, that's balancing your hormones. You cannot fight your biology. I don't care what diet plan or what intentions you have, you cannot fight your biology. If you're not willing to eat right, and you don't need somebody to tell you whether you're putting something in your mouth that you shouldn't. All of us know whether we're about to eat something that we shouldn't. That's not a good food choice, right? Same thing. You know how much water you should be drinking, get 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night. And I'm not saying join a CrossFit gym, but how about parking your car at the other end of the mall and walking or taking the steps at work, right? And so, and then the third thing I would say is to be cognizant of your response. I call it being a first responder instead of an emotional reactor. Channel the 911 operator, right? You ever called 911? Do they freak out? Oh my gosh, you're having a heart attack? No, they say, 911, what's your emergency? And then they calmly ask questions, gather information, and come up with a plan of response, not an emotional reaction. So those would be my 3 things.
Ask good questions. I love that 2-minute test. Don't resist your brain's trying to protect you. Come into agreement with, okay, I know you're just trying to take care of me, but if it were possible, how would I do this?
Yeah, I'm not arguing with myself. Hey, that's crazy talk. Yeah, no, it is crazy talk. I'm with you. But if we could, just fantasy, just play along. I mean, I use it in the boardroom all the time. You'll get pushback from like big, C-suite people. And I'm like, no, listen, man, I'm not arguing. I'm with you. That's crazy talk. But if we could fix it, and then literally within the next 30 seconds, we have 5 solutions on the table.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, but it happens every single time. I mean, you could take it. I wish I could get money. I would bet on it beforehand if I could get any takers, right? That won't work. Okay, it won't work. But if it could work, how would we do it? It works every time. Every time.
It's a brain trick, really, honestly.
Yeah, it's a hack. It's just to get around our resistance.
And then getting that body dominated, letting our mind drive the train so that our emotions stay under control.
Absolutely. You can never, and just listen, emotions are nothing more than your perception plus hormones.
Oh,
so if your hormones,
it's frightening.
Right. And if your hormones are out of whack, you're never going to feel good. You'll never have a good emotion. If you do, it's very short-lived. So you got to get your nutrition, your fitness, and your sleep under control. And that's the first thing I do with every coaching client. They have to write down everything that they eat. They got to write down their sleep. They got to write down how many, what their fitness exercise was. And then they got to text it to me every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they're not willing to do it, then I won't coach them. I'm like, listen, man, you're not serious about getting in control. Because if you don't have a baseline and reset your hormones, you'll never fight your biology. The mind will never, no matter how much you want the mind to take over and your intention, if your hormones are off, your emotions will always take over.
Well, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And then be cognizant of your responses. Calmly ask questions.
Yeah, be a first responder, 911 operator. Like, that's a great trick to this. Like, especially like if you're a parent, right? The kids come home, they got like a 50 on a chemistry test and you're flipping out. Listen, 911, what's the emergency? Is there really an emergency here? 99% of the time, what you're about to freak out over is not an emergency. There's a traffic jam. Okay, so what? There's a traffic jam. Taxes are due. Okay, so they're due. The rent's due. Okay, is that an emergency? It's not an emergency, right? None of these, we're freaking out. And when you freak out, it keeps you from solving the problem.
Yes. And everything that we do has an inherent solution involved in it, right? Like, in other words, the solution's there.
Absolutely.
We just have to train ourselves to find it.
Right. Instead of just freaking out, the sky's falling. Oh my gosh. Stop being an emotional reactor. Be a first responder. I
love that. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your passion with me today. I love this conversation. I love what you talk about.
Good time. Thank you so much for having me.
And my pleasure. And today I've been speaking with Andrew Wittman. He's an author, a speaker, the founder of the Mental Toughness Training Center. And if you head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 120, I will have hyperlinks to Andrew and his books and his radio show so that you can get more of the goodness that this man has to offer. And if you're looking for someone to coach you along these lines, you can get that information there as well. And as always, while you're there, please leave your name and your email address so that I can send you a gift. And you can also go to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. Subscribe, rate, please share this podcast. The people that I have on this show have a message that your friends and your family need to hear. This is us building a community of life-changing conversation. Let's be the change that we want to see. Share this podcast with your friends. And as always, don't wait. Start today. Get out there. Get your growth on. Pursue that dream. Be the best person that you can be. Go after it, friends. Don't wait another day. And as always, I look forward to talking with you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.